Good evening, everyone. It's time for another episode of the Necomaniacs Horror Podcast. So that means it's Necro Thursday, and I'm here with Jeff Kashid. How's it going, Jeff?
Good, man. How you doing?
Doing good, man. It's it's Friday. Actually, it's not Friday. It's Saturday.
Is it Saturday? Oh, shit. I thought it was Friday, too.
Nah. It's Saturday morning. And last night, I went to go see Clan of Zymox and another band from Sweden called And Then There Was Silence.
Yeah. I don't know either of those bands.
Yeah, well, Zymox is like an old electronic goth kind of band. And it was fun. It was a lot of fun.
Where was that at?
It was at this place called Brooklyn Monarch, where
no.
It's like one of the newish venues that's going on in Brooklyn. We played there with Nuclear Assault back right after the pandemic wrapped up, and Deicides played there, and there's a bunch of shows going on there. And
it sounds like a bigger venue.
Yeah, it was probably like it sold out last night, and I think the capacity is like maybe 600 people or something like that. You know?
Oh, okay.
And yeah, it was cool. I was one of there was about 40 dudes wearing black trench coats. I was one of them. So I thought I was being original with my wardrobe, but not so much, I guess.
So you went home and burned the trench coat?
Yeah.
Yeah. Nice. Cool, man. Hey, I got tickets for a show, actually. Something I don't do too much anymore. There's a thing happening in Austin. Happened last year. I don't know how long it's been going on for, but it's new to me. Called Oblivion Fest.
Oh, yeah?
And I saw that Earth was playing Earth 2 in its entirety. And I don't know, if you know me for a long time, you know how important that record is to me. I got it about a year before I moved to Boston, and I listened to it every night for about 3 years to go to sleep to, and just kind of get lost in. And 30 years later, they're playing it live in the city I'm now living in. I was like, this is an opportunity I cannot miss. I don't know if you've ever seen Earth live, but were you at they played a show in Boston. I think you had already moved to New York. They played a show in Boston at the Linwood in like 2002 or so.
I don't know who you think you're dealing with here, Jeff, but I definitely have seen Earth. I didn't see him at the Linwood though. I saw him somewhere else. Yeah, it was after I moved to New York. Yeah.
Okay. But this was the Linwood, 2002. We were all excited to see Earth, and it was dog shit. It was really bad.
Right.
And like they kind of been on hiatus. They were, we're like, what's this going to be like? And it was basically like a dude with like a half stack and his girlfriend playing drums, or wife or whatever. And it was like watching two people like jam in a practice space for the first time. And we're like, man, what the fuck is this? It was real, but you know, Earth, like a couple of years later, sort of rediscovered themselves and started doing kind of what they're doing now, that like very kind of slow, quieter, westerny kind of vibe that they got going on.
Yeah, there was that record, Hibernaculum, which came out like 2007, maybe 2008.
Yeah. So this is like the in between the old Earth and the new Earth. So I'm hoping this time it's better than, it can't be worse than the last time I saw him.
I imagine it's going to be good because he has. It seems like he's kind of rediscovered himself too over the last 20 years, and he's been putting out some really good music.
Oh yeah, I've dug everything Earth has done since that record you mentioned. I like all that stuff a lot, but Earth 2 was something different, and I know Sun kind of took that whole idea and ran with it, but it's going to be special to see the person who started that do it live.
Yeah, I saw that tour that you were talking about too, and I didn't see it with you guys because I wasn't living in town at the time, and I was very disappointed, man. I was like, man, this is like really not that good, and some of the people I was with, who are more concerned about appearances, were going or praising it up and down for being brilliant, you know, And I was like, you guys obviously don't know what the fuck you're talking about. So.
Yeah, it was me, Aaron Turner, Randy, and we were just kind of stunned after the show. Like, what the fuck did we just watch? Dylan Carlson was dressed like he looked like an undercover cop or something like that. He was wearing like a suit and like slick back hair. I was like, he's trying to figure something out here, but he's not quite there yet.
So they're just doing that Earth 2 thing at that festival in Austin, or are they going on tour? Are they doing more dates with that, or what's the details?
I'm not sure. So far, I've only seen that they're doing this one show, but like these kind of things are big now, where a band goes back, gets back together, plays like their seminal record live. I would expect to see more of these. And I don't know who's in the band, like who's he going to get to perform with them. I mean, Earth 2 is pretty minimal, but there is, multiple guitars. There's a little percussion. I'm curious to see how they reinterpret it live. Very curious. Could be great, could be bad, but either way, it's gonna be something.
I think it would be sick if he just went up on stage with like a earpiece and like a click track and just like a fucking wall of amps.
Yeah,
did it by himself. How badass would that be? Actually,
that would be amazing. That would be fucking amazing. That's kind of what I'm hoping for.
Yeah. That sounds cool, man. That's a really cool thing, man.
Yeah, and Godflesh is playing the next day, and I'm going to that as well. It's been a long time since I've seen Godflesh. It's been a long time since I've seen Justin, who ISIS spent a lot of time on tour with.
Yeah, he's a nice guy, man. I met him
years ago. Very nice guy. Yeah, very nice guy. Really excited about that. I don't go out to shows much anymore, so this is kind of this is exciting for me.
Yeah, tonight I'm heading down to Philly. Actually, there's Rotting Christ, Gay Rhea, and some other bands are playing, and it's most of the bands on the bill are on Season of Mist, so. Our publicist was like, "Oh, come down! Like we're gonna have a get together, and everyone will be there, and put me on the list and that kind of thing." And I'll see Gordon, our mutual friend Gordon.
Oh wow, how's Gordon doing? I haven't talked to Gordon in 15 years, maybe.
Yeah, he's doing good, man. I see him from time to time. It's like not to sound like some fucking douchebag, but like like our manager does all the sort of record label stuff, so I don't really interact with him on a personal level when it comes to the band. The only person I really just talk to Katie, the publicist, a lot when it comes to press things, and then Gordon, I see him around. Like when we roll through Philly, he's there, but he's like one of these cats who's like always busy. He doesn't have time for anything, man. So you have to catch him somewhere. So I'll see him tonight, and I'm looking forward to that.
Awesome. Tell him I said hi, please.
Yeah, no, absolutely, man.
I'd love to see Gordon again. Other than that, Mike, I think I mentioned off air things I've been checking out. I've been checking out your podcast, Everything Went Black.
Oh, thank you.
I was going through my podcast and trying to make space because I got a road trip coming up, and I saw I had 100 episodes downloaded. And I was like, I got to get through some of these. So I listened to your most recent one about hip hop, which is a music form that's very near and dear to my heart. That was really an interesting episode. I listened to you and Randy talk about Bad Lieutenant.
Oh man, that's an old one. That's a good one though, man.
That's a great one, man. I love that movie.
Oh,
and it kind of inspired me, I think, to pick the movie we're gonna watch. We're gonna talk about today. It's another Nicolas Cage movie, and Bad Lieutenant is a great example of Nicolas Cage giving an absolutely batshit performance, and it completely 100% works.
And we're talking about the Bad Lieutenant Port of Call, New Orleans. Yes. not the original one with Harvey Keitel by Abel Ferrara, that directed by Abel Ferrara. So that's like a kind of a maligned, I wouldn't even call it a sequel, but reimagining of that. Like no one really checked that movie out, but it's a hidden gem. Kind of similar to this one.
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, we're going to talk about that. And I listened to your Deftones episode, too.
Yeah.
that you did with Ralph. That kind of surprised me. I didn't know you were a fan.
I wasn't for a long time, actually. I never listened to them. And, there was a young lady that was in my life for a period of time that was a big fan of theirs, and she was like trying to urging me to give them a chance. And then I was like, yeah, right, okay, new metal, whatever. Like,
yeah.
But then, like, I probably hanging out with her at her place like one morning or something like that. She put it on, and I was like, man, this is actually pretty fucking cool, man. And I'd sort of been a fan of theirs for the last like 10 or 12 years.
Yeah. I think it was 2000 or something. We were on tour, and Aaron Harris really liked that record, White Pony. And it's the same thing with me. I was very dismissive. I was like, oh, new metal. They have a DJ. No, next. And he played it, and when he was driving, which was a lot. And it kind of broke me down. Like, eventually I had to admit, like, I actually like this.
Well, there was a lot of similarities to what you guys were doing, I felt. Like, in their later material, like, I felt like there was a lot of, like, similarities to what ISIS was doing, and that's what kind of made me give them more of a second chance, I guess.
Yeah, I think I said this in an interview about Palms. So Deftones always had more in common with bands like ISIS and that kind of ilk than they did with Korn. I thought, like, very progressive sort of take on metal and heavy music. And yeah, they're a cool band, man. I like those guys.
Also, that I love all that kind of sad boy, like, like stuff like that too, and that emo-y kind of like heartbroken lyrics and all that. So that they have like a goth feel somewhat at times, which I appreciate.
Totally. Like, they're influenced by bands that really influenced me, like The Cure, The Smiths. Like, I love that stuff.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so that was fun. I went down a little, like, Mike Hill rabbit hole, for like, like a 10-hour chunk at work.
Well, thanks. That's cool.
Yeah, and checked out Bad Lieutenant because of it. And what about you, man? What have you been checking out?
Well, I was away for work for an entire week, so I didn't watch anything. But then when I got back, I like submerged myself in a bunch of stuff that I was wanting to see. So off the top, there's a movie called Ghoul that's on Tubi, and it's like a found footage film that takes place in Ukraine, actually.
Oh, okay.
And it's actually really good, so I recommend that one. It's got witchcraft, cannibalism, manifestations of demons, like all that kind of good shit. You know what I mean? That's good. Completely on the other end of the spectrum, there's a movie called The Rapture. Have you ever heard of this movie? Mimi Rogers and David Duchovny are in this movie.
No, I definitely haven't seen that. I'd remember that.
Very weird. Very strange cerebral film. It's I don't think I haven't really heard of anyone who liked this movie or even heard of this movie, and it came out in the 90s. And it has to do with belief in God, the end of the world, and who gets left behind and like all that kind of stuff. I mean, it's a very I would say it almost has like this pro-Christian vibe to it, but nonetheless, it's very interesting though. It's like, coming at it from, an atheistic standpoint, it's an interesting piece of fiction. You know what I mean?
Oh, wow. Yeah. When you said David Duchovny, I assumed like this must be like a 90s movie.
Yeah. I saw A Spoonful of Sugar on Shudder, which is, features David Yao, the singer from the Jesus Lizard. Have you ever heard of that band, the Jesus Lizard?
No, are they a newer band? Yeah, of course. Of course. I saw them in like 95.
It's a very good. It's kind of, in my opinion, kind of like tapping out the evil babysitter subgenre, But it's definitely worth the watch. It's on Shudder. And
wait. Does David Yao play the babysitter?
No.
Oh.
There's some an actress plays the babysitter. He plays this super sketchy father figure that you don't even know if it's actually her father.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
But there's some weird role playing going on. I don't really it's like uncomfortable, and that's why the movie is very uncomfortable. And I like
Okay.
yeah.
Well, you cast David Yao on anything. He's going to be like, okay, you're a sketchy guy. Like that's just he's just got that look.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and he's not in the film a lot, but when he's in, he makes an impact.
Cool, awesome.
And as far as films go, last but not least, there's The Stylist, which is the full feature version of a short that Brandon Legion recommended to me a few years ago. And
okay,
awesome. That's on Shudder.
Yeah, you've been talking about that one a lot.
Yeah. The short is on. I saw it on the Arrow app, but I don't know if Shudder has the short as well, and it's very good. In some ways, it's like a female maniac.
Oh, interesting.
You know what I mean? Like, how there's things about it that remind me of Maniac. So yeah, I think it's definitely an interesting film. Maybe a film that I'd like to cover at some point.
Okay, yeah, I'll check it out.
Yeah, and just one last thing. Yesterday, I received in the mail Pictures of the Apocalypse. It's the first new Thomas Ligotti output in, it's got to be over 10 years, right? And it's a book of poetry. Yeah. It's put out by our friends over at Chiroptera Press, which is part of Cadabra Records. And it's illustrated by Jonathan Dennison, who's the proprietor of Chiroptera Press and Cadabra Records. And it's I got the deluxe. I ordered it a while ago, so I got the deluxe. It's got a book with an interview with Ligotti. It's got outtakes for the illustrations, and there's in the book itself has a forward by David Tibet of Current 93.
Oh yeah, well yeah, those two, Ligotti and Current 93, collaborated quite some time ago on a CD/book. Which I do own.
Yeah, and the the illustrations are great. They're Are you familiar with the artwork of Lee Brown Coy?
I think you may have mentioned him before.
Yeah. Well, he's definitely someone that's in that weird fiction genre. He illustrated the covers for a chapbook publication called Whispers, which published some of the early horror fiction of Carl Edward Wagner. And directly, his artwork has directly inspired a lot of the stuff in the first season of True Detective. And I picked up a book of his artwork when I was up at Necronomicon last summer, and it's very, very cool stuff. So
awesome.
Yeah, that's like, if anyone follows me on Instagram, you see that me holding the book and pretending I'm reading it, and It's a great package, man. So I definitely go check it out. It's great. And there's an event coming up in June that I will be attending. I'll be there the entire weekend, and it's called the Nightlands Fest. And it's on June 2nd and 3rd at this venue called Cathedral, with a K, in Hamilton, New Jersey, which is close to Philadelphia and South Jersey. And there's a standalone event on June 1st, which is a reading of the poetry of Thomas Ligotti. It's an event that's organized around Pictures of Apocalypse, and that's at a place called the Book Restoration Bindery in Haddonfield, New Jersey, which is a neighboring town. I'm showing up June 1st, and I'll be there the entire time, and I'll be hanging out. The guys from Cadabra Records are going to be there. St. Joshi is going to be there. If anyone who's into Lovecraft and Clark Ashton Smith and weird fiction and all that will know his name, because he's all over any kind of annotated editions of those authors' works. Or if you watch documentaries, St. Joshi is always a guy who comments on it. He's like a specialist on weird fiction and horror in general. So it's going to be a lot of fun. There's music. There's going to be some specifically curated vendors, which I'm assuming means that you're not going to be able to buy like a Jason Voorhees doll or anything like that there. Or you'll probably get like some really cool like artwork or music or, you know, some sort of very curated kind of stuff, you know.
Man, that's awesome. That sounds like a blast, man.
And I actually had I had Chris Bozzone on as a guest on Everything Went Black to talk about, you know, Cadabra Records in general, and we touched on this stuff. And if anyone is interested in further information, just head over to Everything Went Black, and there's some stuff on this.
Apparently, I had that one downloaded, so I should listen to it.
Yeah, no, I've been looking forward to this thing. I know it's a couple months out, but I'm really looking forward to it.
And you said Legati is not going to be there, though. Not the man himself.
Of course not.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
I don't think that guy would ever show up for anything like this.
Yeah, like he seems like a complete and utter recluse, and reclusive, strange old man or something like that.
It would be awesome if there was if throughout the whole thing I noticed like some shadowy figure like in the darkness, and I was like, "Who is that guy?" Oh, that was Tom. That was Tom. He just wanted to observe.
Yeah. Apparently, he lives in Florida of all places. You don't expect that guy to be like just chilling in Florida.
That would rule if he was like this sort of like right wing, like
That's fucking chud.
Yeah, he's got like guns and shit like that.
Oh my god, yeah. Nothing surprises me anymore. So who knows? I literally know very little about the guy, what he's like as a person. He's only done a handful of interviews, and seems to have contempt for a lot of things. So I'll say that in the interviews I did see.
Yeah. Well, that goes hand in hand with the other side of the aisle, is to have contempt for things.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Awesome, man.
Well, before we get going, I just want to shout everyone out, all of our horsemen of the podcasting apocalypse, the growing legions of listeners and everything. And so, of course, starting on Monday, my good friend Brandon Legion, who I mentioned earlier, brings us Horror Wolf 666. On Tuesday, we have what I consider an expert on extreme music, Jackie Smith with Into the Necrosphere. Wednesday is Everything Went Black, which is like you never know what you're going to get on that one. You got music, you got martial arts, you got art, you got filmmaking, you got all sorts of stuff on that one. Thursday, of course, is Necro Thursday, which is the podcast that you're listening to right now. Friday brings us Break the Apocalypse, featuring John Draper, Mike Scandato's brother. And that's like a commentary on current events, I would say. It's more than that, but it kind of, if you were to encapsulate what they do, I would say that is like a nice blurb about that podcast. Mm-hmm. Sunday, the Lord's Day, is Soul Knox, brought to you by Carl Hikara. And Carl and I are actually going to be embarking on a split effort to start discussing the work of Carl Edward Wagner on a sub-series that we're calling Darkness Weaves. And one episode is going to be on Everything Went Black on the normal stream, and then one episode is going to be on Soul Knox, and we're just going to alternate. We're going to start off with In a Lonely Place, the newly republished Wagner collection of horror fiction, which has some of his more important works that have influenced a lot of things in popular culture in the last 15 years. And so, yeah, that's like a thing Carl and I are going to be working on together.
Awesome.
Yeah. So that brings us to tonight's film. You want to give the rundown on that, Jeff?
Yes. Today we are doing the Wickerman 2006 remake of the classic 1973 film, the British film, my personal favorite horror film of all time, the original.
Yeah, I'm quite fond of that movie as well. It's part of that triumvirate of folk horror. Even though that genre has existed way before this, the ones that brought it into prominence, it would be Blood and Satan's Claw, The Wicker Man, and Witchfinder General. But
yes,
The Wicker Man, I think, stands out as the superior of those three films.
Yeah, definitely. And maybe it's sort of a right place, right time thing where people of a certain age discover it when they're young, they grow up with it. I do remember I followed this remake since its inception, and just the general reaction to someone remaking The Wicker Man was overtly negative. I'm of a different mind about remakes. When I love something and I've seen it a million times, I know it inside and out, I kind of get excited to see a different version of this thing I love. Maybe there'll be some new insight, something. Maybe that goes a different way. But I was really excited about this, and everyone said I was insane.
Are you daft, man?
Are you daft, mate? Yeah, especially like friends from England, like they were like downright hostile about this.
Yeah, man. I mean, that's their shit, man. That sort of Cornish, folksy pagan kind of stuff that's like, it's like a German making in America, a Western or something like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, 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 exactly. And Nicolas Cage, I think, was the person who really got this off the ground. Like ever since I started reading about it, Nicolas Cage's name was in the mix, and I found out like your friend there, Johnny Ramone, turned him on to The Wicker Man, the original.
My friend.
Yeah, your friend. Apparently, Nicolas Cage and him hung out, and Johnny Ramone had some insane movie poster collection. And Nicolas Cage goes, oh, no, what's that one? And it's The Wicker Man, and like that's how he discovered this film. And I guess he saw it and was so, inspired by what he saw. Like, we're gonna remake this, and so this became like a Nicolas Cage project. And I was like, okay, this is happening. And then the next big piece of information, Neil LaBute is going to direct. Are you familiar with him?
He wrote In the Company of Men, right?
He wrote and directed it. Yes,
directed that. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's his kind of background. He was like an indie guy. He came from the world of theater. He was a playwright and directed plays, and it really shows in his earlier films. They do have that kind of feel to them. So this was 2006, Mike. So this was like when that whole remake boom was happening, and they were getting like that Platinum Dune look, and they were just getting like kind of video directors. And I thought, wow, okay, Neil LaBute, this guy's a real director. This is going to be interesting. He brings things to the table. He brings ideas to the table. And then Dread started. I saw the trailer. I was like, oh, okay, not bad. Different. Cool. They're obviously hiding. Yeah, they're obviously keeping the ending under wraps. And then I remember we were on tour at the time, checking Rotten Tomatoes. It was the day before the movie opened, and there was no reviews yet, which is usually at that time a very bad sign. That means this was not being screened for critics. If it's like 11:59 at Thursday, right before midnight on Friday, and there's no reviews for it, that's usually that means the movie's a piece of shit. And so the reviews came out, got like a 20% on Rotten Tomatoes. I was like, okay, I'm still gonna go to see this. We were on tour. We were on a bus tour at that point, and I spent I mentioned this story before or told the story. I spent like $65 to see this movie.
Wait, how much did you spend on this?
I just spent like $65. Well, see, because we were on a bus tour, and once the bus is parked, the bus doesn't move. Like the driver, goes away, and so we're just kind of sitting in like a parking lot of some diner in the middle of fucking nowhere, California. And I'm like, I'm going to see this. This is a remake of my favorite movie of all time. Who's coming with me? And everyone was like, yeah, no. I had to get a cab to the movie theater, pay for the movie, get a soda. I'm not really a popcorn guy. And then take a cab back. So all this, set me back like $65, $70. And
wow.
And I was kind of in shock by what I just saw. Like I was like, I don't know how I feel about this. And over time, the movies become kind of infamous, and I just thought it'd be kind of cool to revisit and really discuss, is the movie really one of the worst movies ever made? Like, well, I mean, do you have any sort of like, I mean, I know you love the original,
Yeah.
obviously.
Yeah, the original's great. I mean, this is only the second time I've seen this. Like I remember out of sheer boredom one weekend renting the DVD of this when I lived in Greenpoint, because the photo play, one of my favorite places in the planet Earth, that closed, unfortunately, had every movie you can ever imagine that you wanted to see. And I was like, I barely made it through the first viewing, man. That's kind of how I felt about it. But I did watch the entirety of it, and then just recently, because we're going to talk about it, I rewatched it. So second time around was better than the first, and I'll just say that for starters. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I would say this is either my third or fourth time seeing it. I saw it in the theater on tour. Came back, and I remember buying the DVD at Kim's Video about a month before it actually came out. Do you remember Kim's Video?
Oh, dude,
they're gone now. I'm not calling them out, but they would have releases like months before they came out.
Yeah, that was like one of my favorite fucking places in Manhattan, man. Kim's Video and See Here Books, both of which are gone by the wayside at this point and forgotten by most people, were like two of my favorite places in Manhattan to do things and check out stuff and like rent. I mean, Kim's was like, what, 3 floors?
Yeah. I love that place. That was when I lived in New York for those 2 years. I was there at least once a week, dropping $100-$200 on movies.
Yeah, and St. Mark's Place was a way different place back then too. I mean, there was like New York was just different, man. Like you walk down St. Mark's and it was like you could run into like Chloe Sevigny or something like that, and like, I don't know, the Roger Moret or something would be there, and like you would just see like the most random people there, like just there,
Yeah, yeah, totally.
Yeah, but yeah, that Kim's was great, man. I used to love that place.
Oh yeah, So I was like, oh man, they had the different ending. So I was like, see, I have to see this. This is my favorite movie. The original is my favorite movie of all time. Seen the remake. Now there's a different version of the remake. I have to see this. And it's funny. I think the changes they made to the director's cut were meant to fix some of the problems people had with the theatrical cut, but it made it even more comical to a lot of people.
Yeah.
I don't know which version you saw, actually. Did you see the director's cut? Or
no? I think I saw that. Well, I'm not sure either, actually, because I barely paid attention the first time I saw it, and then because I didn't see it in a theater, I saw it on DVD, so a lot of my mind was wandering because I started not being into the movie, and then the second time around, like last week, the version I saw, it didn't seem that different than the DVD I saw like back in like 2007 or whatever,
Yeah, well, from what I understand is they edited out the whole thing with Nicolas Cage being tortured and prepared. Spoilers, by the way. We're going to spoil the movie. It's, if you haven't seen the original, I don't know why the fuck you're listening to this.
The movie kind of spoiled itself, really. So.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's the thing. You're remaking something that it entirely hinges on the ending. So once you already know the ending, I mean, you know the movie. It's a strange choice of a film to remake because it's not. It may be obscure by mainstream film, culture, but like if you're a horror fan, of even a mild horror fan, you've seen The Wickerman.
Yeah, no, I would say so.
So, and I mean, that is sort of like this whole Inception, everything about this movie, I would say it is a little well, maybe not a little, maybe it's very misguided. The original works because it's such a great balance of tone and strangeness and silliness, and then you have this horrific ending. Here, a lot of that is missing. Like the movie, I mean, I wouldn't say it's not atmospheric, but it's really not like, I don't know, it doesn't have that same feel as the original, that's for sure.
It's Where the original has like a feel and an atmosphere to it, this primarily feels like it was made for like the Sci-Fi Channel or something, you know?
Yeah, well, I did write this down. Neil LaBute said he was an interesting choice for director. I don't think he understands horror movies at all. I think there's these weird jump scares, like not like. Okay, so I get a little background, a little difference. Instead of Sergeant Howie, in this movie we have Edward Malis, as played by Nicolas Cage, and he's a bike cop. He's motorcycle cop, and he's dealing with some traumatic. There's an accident on the road. He couldn't save this girl, and this mother and her daughter, and Nicolas Cage is really depressed.
Yeah, he's taking medication and thinking about retiring from the police force and things like that.
Right, and so he's kind of at a low point. And in this low point, he gets a letter from a girl he used to date saying she's living in this cult on this island with a cult, and her daughter's missing. Would you please come help? And so that's how they get Nicolas Cage to the island. There's a little bit more, backstory to Nicolas Cage's character. Like I said, he's suffering from PTSD. And you see he's having nightmares about this mother and daughter that he couldn't save. And I think that they try to shoehorn in some horror with those scenes where he's thinking back to the accident. And it comes off as unintentionally cheesy and funny.
Yeah, definitely. And what I just want to add, though, at this point of I actually thought the beginning, this most recent watch of this, I thought it was actually kind of cool. Like the beginning, the setting, like the setup of the story, it's very classic. Like, if you read like a Adam Neville novel or short story or something like that, that setup is like almost like something that he would write. Where this guy's at his low point and he's dealing with some like traumatic experience, and then something from the past like wanders into his life that gives. And at this point in his life, he like finds like that as something, the next thing to maybe bring him out of what the current state that he's in, Right.
Yeah. I agree. That stuff is good, but it almost like Neil LaBute, we're making a horror movie here. We need some scares.
Yeah.
And even the way the title card comes on is like kind of cringy because you have the opening credits kind of playing over like the action, much like you would see in like a TV episode or something like that. You don't see a lot of that these days. And, then the accident happens and boom, the Wickerman comes across the TV, the screen with this really dramatic music, which, by the way, Angelo Badalamenti scored this movie.
Yeah, I was going to add that. And, but what's cool though, is and I think films don't have scores like that obviously anymore, but there's like, it made me think of another Nicolas Cage movie, that 8mm.
Oh yeah, you and Mike covered that.
Yeah, and there's a thing that happened in the late '90s and the early 2000s where there's like these like brooding, ominous scores that they just no one does that anymore.
Totally, yeah, and I can almost hear them saying like going for like a 1960s kind of thing, Psycho with the score.
Yeah.
And that's one of the ways this movie is a little misguided. The original is a great balance of tone with these kind of free-spirited cult hippies kind of living on this island. They're singing songs and dancing. And the tone in this one, when he gets to Summer's Isle, not Summer Isle in this, it's Summer's Isle. Very, okay, whatever.
It's very fascistic. Very fascistic in some ways, yeah.
Yeah, like the Islanders, they're openly hostile towards him and cruel to him, and they're not fun, happy people. Like the tone almost immediately when he gets to the island is very dour and serious, and so right there, like it's branching from. I mean, plot wise, this movie basically is almost beat for beat the original.
Right, with some differing overtones, though. Like there are certain things that like the sort of the reveal is a little bit different than in the original. That kind of stuff.
Yeah, for sure. but yeah, here it is a matriarchy. It is an island populated mostly by women, and that's something that kind of plays out in Neil LaBute's earlier films, gender politics. And I know he's been accused of being misogynistic, and I think it's an interesting discussion to have.
Yeah.
But he brings that to this movie, and I gotta say, I thought I don't know exactly what he was trying to say. It really, okay, he made the island all women, and they're all evil.
Right. They're all exactly. They're like these like fascist women, man-hating women, basically, because all the men are like these broken shadows of themselves.
Yeah, they're mute. A lot of them.
Yeah, and they're just there to like provide like jizz. You know what I mean? So they can propagate the race and all that stuff, and do manual labor. But you would think like that's the thing, and that's why you can tell it was written by like a guy like LaBute, because it's basically a more extreme version of a patriarchal society, but just with women.
Right.
The whole point of like this kind of thing is that women would sort of have a different take on how to run like an operation like this.
Yeah, but yeah, they pretty much run it just like they do in the original. I don't know. That was a strange touch to me. I don't really think Neil LaBute had anything interesting to say about gender politics. Like you don't really know. Like, are you supposed to hate the women and like Nicolas Cage? And what are you saying with all this?
Well,
women are evil.
I think that's kind of the point he's making, actually, because Nicolas Cage, there's really nothing. Like he didn't really do anything wrong. He was kind of lured there. He was looking for a kid, which spoiler, turned out to be his daughter.
Yeah, which you saw coming from a mile away. Yeah, which is a new twist.
Yeah, it's a new twist, and he was manipulated to come there, and the women are there as like the matriarchs are kind of evil. In this case, and so he's clearly the hero, quote unquote, of the story, and they're like this evil, predatory, race of people there,
Yeah, I kind of flip flopped back and forth between. I couldn't tell if I liked Cage's character or didn't. Not unlike Sergeant Howie in the original, although I would say in the original you're not really supposed to like Howie, but by the end,
yeah.
His situation is so horrific, you empathize with him. I think they did get that right with this character, although they make Cage's character a lot more likable, but he has shadows of the original character, where he's kind of, shows him being a nice guy, but then he's like banging, okay, this is official police business.
Yeah.
And he kind of turns into like this different guy, and I don't know if like it plays out so funny that like I wonder, like, do they not know how ridiculous this all is? Do they not know how silly this all feels?
Well, one of the problems I think is setting it in the United States. You know what I mean?
Because,
the whole crux of like folk horror is like Christianity and paganism. You know what I mean? And like in Britain, before the Romans brought Christianity to England, to ancient Britain, they were pagans. Like they had all these different religious beliefs that had to do with nature and the sun and the moon and the tides and all this kind of stuff. And the whole point of the original was like this like Christian repression versus the old culture, which in some ways people might look at as being a little bit more positive. There's like free love and women running around naked and stuff like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And but the price is like there's a darkness, there's a darker undercurrent with the being able to live in a society like that, and you might even comment on that, saying that, well, that obviously someone who's like a Christian wrote this because they wouldn't maybe look at things differently. I don't know, but that's one of the flaws of this film. It's that it's taking place in a country that only has just over 200 years of history.
Yeah. Exactly. What would have been more interesting would maybe to set this in earlier times in America, where America was really new, and you have like that kind of that kind of schism between like the old ways and them trying to create something new in America. To me, that would have worked a lot better.
Absolutely, because there is a crossover between Native American mysticism and European mysticism as a result of being settled by Europeans. Like
yes.
there were some things that would, I'm trying to remember all this shit, but there's like certain things where they just connected and became a different thing, a different belief system that had its roots in the older beliefs of both Europe and Native America. So that would have been a really cool angle to play in this, but none of that was really played out.
No, yeah. So yeah, it's in America, it's modern times, and yeah. I mean, there's an inherent silliness even to the original. It's sort of like a silly-ish movie, and it knows that though. This movie is like deadly serious. Yeah. And in my research, Nicolas Cage has said that there was a mischievous mind like to making this. Like we knew we were like making a funny movie. And then he went on to say, like, he wanted to wear a ridiculous handlebar mustache in this movie. And he wanted to keep the bear costume on the entire ending. I'm not sure I buy that. That, like, oh, this is supposed to be funny. The movie does not feel at all like this is supposed to be tongue-in-cheek. Did you get that?
I did not get a tongue-in-cheek vibe at all. But I did have questions about the bear suit, honestly. I'm like, part of me was like, after watching this thing for however long, it's like, first of all, though, it's 102 minutes long, too, you know?
Yeah.
So after watching the first, 90 minutes of this movie, I was like, this bear costume, I guess, makes sense because it's fucking ridiculous. And, you know what I mean? And a lot of this movie struck me as being kind of, like, ridiculous, I guess, you know?
Well, at one point, Nicolas Cage in bear costume runs up and punches a woman in the face, and I mean, I don't know. Like, if they were going for intentional comedy, the tone is all wrong. Which brings me back to the movie Bad Lieutenant. That movie is absurd. It knows it's absurd. And everything that happens in it is absurd.
Yeah,
and
Werner Herzog directed it. Yeah, so of course he's a master filmmaker. You know. Yeah,
he nails it. And here, I'm like, if that's what you're going for, you have failed miserably. And I guess it would have been more comical to see Nicolas Cage in a fucking handlebar mustache burning alive in a bear suit, but I don't know. And funny enough. That Midsummer, you know.
Oh, dude, everyone knows how I feel about Midsummer, man. It's like,
very disappointing.
Yeah, dude. It's like fucking. It's pointless to even have made that film, if you ask me. Really.
Oh man, one of my favorites of the last 20 years. Love that movie.
Yeah. There's
better than this.
There's an even longer version of that out there too, apparently.
Yeah, there is. I've seen it. Stick with the theatrical cut. I'll just say that.
Yeah.
But yeah, okay. I remember back in the day when I got this on DVD, I watched this with the director's commentary because I used to love those. I don't know if those are a thing anymore.
Oh, dude, 100%, man. All these Blu-rays that you buy have all this like commentary tracks and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, I just unearthed my DVD collection so I could find this. And I got to start buying them again. I really miss collecting these things. But anyway, I watched this with the director's commentary back in 2006 or so because, interesting stuff. It'd be interesting to get the director's insight into this movie.
Yeah.
And there's no hint at all that this was funny or that anything went wrong in the production of this. Listening to this guy Neil LaBute talk about this movie, you would think he's making fucking Gone with the Wind in his mind. I mean, at one point he compares it to a Terrence Malick movie.
Oh man.
Yeah, I remember that because at that point, Terrence Malick was my favorite director, still one of my favorite directors, and this is definitely not a Terrence Malick movie. I mean, I will say. It's one of Neil LaBute's more visually appealing movies. For such a troubled movie and how ridiculous it turned out, This is one of the best looking movies, bad movies, I would say, that's ever been made. I think the costuming is great. I think the look of Summer's Isle is fantastic. It feels real. And I love a lot of those overhead shots, which would be done with drones today. But there's a lot of these cool overhead shots that show Nicolas Cage kind of wandering. You see, like, the imprint of the ground looks like a beehive. There's some cool ideas here visually. It's a great looking movie, and that's initially what I remember from first time around watching it. I was like, oh, everyone hates this movie. I thought it looked pretty cool. Is this movie really as bad as people say it is? And that's kind of why I wanted to watch this again. And yeah.
There's some interesting cast members in this too, by the way.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
We've got Ellen Burstyn. She plays Sister Summer's Isle. Of course, we know Ellen from The Exorcist.
Of course. And Requiem for a Dream.
Requiem for a Dream. We have the great Frances Conroy as Dr. Moss. She's like part of this little operation here. And we know her from 6 Feet Under, American Horror Story. A lot of TV, a lot of television.
Yeah. Yeah.
But she's great. I love her.
Yeah.
Another I'm a fan of hers too, Molly Parker. She was also been in a lot of television. She plays
she's great.
She plays 2 roles, Sister Rose and Sister Thorne. And also we know her from 6 Feet Under and Deadwood. And a lot of these kind of like late 90s, early 2000s actors and actresses. Lily Sobieski.
Yeah.
You know who I'm talking about?
Oh, of course. She was in a terrible movie called The Glass House that I remember when I was, a bit younger.
Yeah, she was like the promiscuous daughter in Eyes Wide Shut. I don't know if you remember that.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. She must have been 12 or something in that.
She was really young in that for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I forgot that was her. Holy
she
shit.
kind of plays a similar role in this one with Sister Honey.
Yeah. Yeah. We should mention that, yes, in the original, it's apples. That is their main crop. Here it is honey. And there's a nice bee motif going on throughout the movie.
And,
the act. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
And Nicolas Cage's ex, the woman who kind of lured him out here. That's I don't know this actress per se. Kate Behan. She plays Willow.
Yes, Willow Woodward is her last name, right? And a nice little nod to the star of the original, Edward Woodward.
And the character in the original is named Willow too, and that was the Britt Eklund character.
Ah, okay. Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
How did I not catch that? Okay. But since you mentioned the acting, I guess we'll go there. You have some great heavy hitters in this, and they all seem kind of laughably bad.
And that proves my theory though about, especially with Nicolas Cage, because I'm a fan of his. I like Nicolas Cage. I think he's definitely has some flaws, but in general I like him. I really think that he responds to the director, because he's been brilliant in certain films where he's well directed. When David Lynch directs him or Panos Cosmatos directs him. It's like.
Werner
Herzog, exactly. He's great, but when there's a weaker director, he needs leadership. I feel like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. I feel like he steamrolled Neil LaBute and was just. I mean, he is Nicolas Caging all over this fucking movie.
Yeah.
I mean, police officer, and then is that a shark you got there?
That's pretty good, actually.
Get off the bike! Dude, that part made me laugh. I remember seeing that in the theater, and the entire theater was fucking howling laughing.
Yeah.
When he points the gun, he's like, get off, step away from the bike! I mean, I can just imagine Neil LaBute just, sitting, in the director's chair with his head in his hands, what have I done? He's out of control in this movie. He's just fucking... 1 minute he's kind of doing the oh gee shucks, I'm a nice guy thing, and then he's screaming and yelling and punching. He drop kicks Lily Sobieski at one point.
He sidekicks her, and he's calling them bitches and stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, you bitch! It's so absurd. And then you have You mentioned you didn't know who this actress was. I think she might have been. I think this might have been a career starter and ender for her. I don't
know.
And she is terrible in this. Terrible.
Yeah.
She plays it with one expression on her face of like surprise and sadness the whole time, and she's very pouty. And I guess maybe that's the point. Maybe you're supposed to hate this character, but like from the moment she was on screen, I could not stand her. I thought her performance was bad. She's clearly British. Her accent comes through a bunch in the movie. But then you have, someone like Ellen Burstyn, who is, one of the best to ever do it. And she's really kind of comically bad in this, I thought.
Really heavy-handed in it, Like very, very, very obvious heavy-handedness in her acting, I think, on this.
Yeah, and especially since she is playing Lord or Lady Summersisle, not Summerisle.
That doesn't even roll off the tongue, you know what I mean? Summersisle.
Yeah, I think there was, I can't remember it exactly, but I remember in the commentary he brought that up. That it was just, I think he said something like, well, I just kept saying Summersisle, so I changed it to Summersisle. So, okay, now it's Summersisle.
So this fucking guy can't speak the right way. He has to. Everyone's got to suffer because of that.
It's a stupid change. It's really stupid. Yeah, but I mean, you're up against a giant when you're up against you're playing a role originally played by Christopher Lee, and what is Christopher Lee's favorite role he ever played was Lord Summerisle, and I would doubt highly that Ellen Burstyn puts this role high up on her list of performances.
Definitely not.
And again, Christopher Lee plays the character much, a little bit more relaxed. Seems like a fun guy, charming. He's nice to Howie. Right off the bat, when Nicolas Cage's character meets Summersisle, you sense that she hates him.
I was going to bring this up too, because the thing is in the original one, this is just part of their culture, man, that someone's got to go every now and then. There's no hate involved in it. It's just, okay, we need a sacrifice. Find an outsider who fits the criteria. But you get the sense with in the remake that there's this malice towards this guy, toward Edward Malice, Yeah,
I was going to say that name sounds very intentional.
Yeah.
And it kind of spits in the face of their whole ideology. That's one thing in a lot of these pagan movies. And they even say it to Nicolas Cage, you should be honored. This is a great honor we're bestowing on you. But it doesn't feel like that at all.
No, it feels like they just want to kill some guy from the modern world. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. In the original, they sing "Summer Is a Comin'" all happy while this guy horrifically burns to death. And this, they're chanting "The drone must die," which I can't believe a guy who comes from the theater would write a line that bad.
Yeah, I agree.
So yeah, their philosophy is completely at odds with their behavior, completely. And since we're talking, did the version you see have the B scene in it?
Yes.
Where they put the crown. Okay. So you did see the unrated cut.
Yeah. I rented this off of Amazon, so probably I imagine it's the unrated cut. Yeah.
When I saw this in the theater, it was the PG-13 version, and as far as I could tell, it was the exact same movie, except the overhead shot of Cage getting overpowered dissolves into him being carried to the Wickerman. So all that stuff with the bees is cut out, but you hear the dialogue from that scene being played over the dissolve, and I'd have to say it is one of the fucking funniest things I've ever seen.
I vaguely remember that from when I watched it on DVD ages ago.
Yeah, because you don't see what's happening. You just hear Nicolas Cage go, "Oh, you bitches! Hey, what are you doing? Oh God, no, my leg!" And I do remember that getting like a big laugh in the theater. But that scene has become the kind of pinnacle of mocking this movie. Is Nicolas Cage going, "Oh, not the bees," and it's become a meme. It's become, and that's one of the reasons. Again, I wanted to talk about this movie. Like people who've never seen this movie make fun of it.
Really?
I
I
remember
they just dismiss this film on basic principles, like just because they don't care, they don't want to see it.
Well, I remember like my last job in LA, someone was like playing that clip at work to be funny, and I was like, yeah, like the original is one of the best horror movies ever made, and he's like, oh, I've never seen either one.
What a douche!
Yeah, I'm like, you're making fun of this? You never seen it? And that has become like a thing of you don't want to like something or be seen as liking something that is uncool. And I think that like people had their minds made up about this movie from memes and things like that before they've even seen it. I mean, we talked a little bit about this, Mike, out there when we talked about season 2 of True Detective. I mean, it was uncool to like season 2 and everyone was constantly bagging on it. But when you just watch it and not think about that, I think season 2 of True Detective is fantastic, and it didn't really get a fair shake.
I agree. I went into season 2 wanting to like it. I was like, I'm hoping that it was going to be different, but on the same level of quality as the first one, And I didn't dislike it. I just wasn't. I mean, I didn't dislike season 2, and then a few years later, I grown to love season 2. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
No, it's not season 1, but.
I wouldn't want it to be season 1. I think
Yeah.
Season 1 works so perfectly because it's a standalone thing.
Yeah, and that was sort of my attitude in seeing this. I know it's not the original. The original's always going to be there. I'm curious to see what someone else does with this movie. And sure, it is comical and misguided, and I think it's unintentionally funny. But there is something to this movie that really charmed me. What do you think about the ending in this? Like, even though you're going into it knowing what's going to happen, does it still work for you?
Do you mean the James Franco ending?
Oh my God, I forgot about that. Yeah. Yeah, I have some thoughts about that. But no, the Wickerman scene.
I mean, like, I like the original better, but I at that point I was like, all right, here comes the part where they burn him alive in the Wickerman, and it looked cool, Yeah,
it did, and I was surprised by how disturbing I still found that scene. Because, they tortured Nicolas Cage beforehand. They break his legs, which I guess kind of makes sense. When you watch the original, they kind of pick Howie up and throw him in there, like walk up a ladder.
Yeah.
Like, you really kind of get the sense, like, he can just kind of probably, like, kick his way out of that thing.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, Wicker is not known for its strength. It's known for its flammability.
Right, yeah. And in this, they break his legs and they hoist him up. Like, this Wicker Man is probably 2 times bigger than the original. Like, you get a sense this thing is, like, a lot taller. And I liked all that. And the fact that his daughter lights him up is really disturbing. And you get a bit more of Cage in the Wicker Man burning than you do in the original movie. He just kind of screams, goes up, and that's that. You get a little bit more of that in here, like Cage suffering this brutal, horrific death.
That's a fucking horrible way to die, man. Being burned alive.
Being burned alive in a Wicker Man while people chanting "The drone must die."
Dude.
I gotta say, like, all silliness aside, the ending really still got me in the theater, because the whole time seeing it in the theater, I was like, are they going to change the ending? Like, are they really going to fucking light up one of the biggest movie stars in the world? And they did, so props to them for that. I mean, I don't see how you could ever make this movie and change the ending, so good on them for at least keeping that.
Yeah, the ending kind of was, I definitely thought it was cool. Like, I mean, that's an iconic scene, and I agree with some of the changes. Yeah, you would have to break someone's legs or restrain them somehow or bind them to put them in a Wicker Man and light them on fire,
Right, yeah, exactly. I totally got that. But apparently, studio executives found the ending of the director's cut too horrific, like too sad of an ending, with the Wickerman burning, then the head falls on the camera, cut to the end. Very kind of not exactly like the original ends, but very similar. In the theatrical cut, yeah, James Franco shows up in this. Like, it's such a head scratcher, man. Like okay, so you wanted an additional ending to brighten up the ending, but it's still a very dark ending because it's basically like you see the two girls from the island, Willow and Lily Sobieski, and they're at a bar and they're like hitting on these two young cops. One of them is James Franco, and you get like, okay, James Franco is the next guy to be burned alive in The Wicker Man.
Right, and it kind of like they're strangers. There's no emotional connection to him, and that's the thing that made me scratch my head too about like, well, that's her ex-boyfriend, husband, whatever, father of her child. So, it's like there's some logic there, I guess, and which is missing.
Yeah, well, no, because that's the point. They're going to get into these guys' lives, like have kids, disappear, and they're going to pull
Yeah,
they're going to pull. I mean, I think that's what you're supposed to get out of that. But reading that the studio wanted a happier ending, I was like, this is not a happier ending. This is just more misery.
Yeah.
I can see why the director did not want to shoot that. It is utterly fucking pointless. It adds nothing to the movie except, I mean, I would imagine they had to pay James Franco, at least a couple grand.
Yeah, well, I don't think he was at the height of his, popularity at that point. You know what I mean? That was
that's true. Well, he was, I think. Yeah, he was a known guy for sure.
Yeah.
Like I recognized him in the theater.
Now he's still canceled, right, James Franco?
Yeah, I have no idea. The last thing I saw him in was the Disaster Artist, and that was quite a while ago now. At this point, like 5 years.
Apparently,
so, yeah, maybe you're right.
There was some trouble with him. Apparently, like the women were coming out that he showed them his dick or something like that.
I'm not really sure what happened there. Not really sure what happened. Maybe it was because of this movie. I mean, it's entirely possible.
Someone dug it up and they were like, I want to destroy him because of his bit part at the end.
Yeah. You ruined that fucking wacky movie. But when all is said and done, I was very annoyed by this whole meme thing and people bagging on something they've never seen. And my whole thought was, look, is this movie really that bad? And in my head, seeing it again for the first time in quite a while, it is misguided and silly and totally enjoyable for the wrong reasons. But I unapologetically like this movie. It's just wacky.
What kind of grade would you give this film, though?
See, that I don't know. Like, I mean, for me personally, I enjoyed watching it. I've always enjoyed watching it. It's such a weird mishmash of tones that don't work, performances that don't work, mixed with like these great sets and costumes, and the ending is still great. It's tough to recommend to people, but I enjoyed watching it. I'll always enjoy watching it. I guess like they didn't intend to make a camp classic, but that's exactly what they did. So I'm gonna go 3, 3.5, somewhere in there.
Okay.
Yeah,
interesting.
It's not a 1. I mean,
no.
We've seen a lot of terrible movies that are just
once,
not enjoyable
definitely.
to watch.
Yeah.
What about you?
You see, I don't know. I'm a little bit on the other end of this thing with you, man. I recommend people check it out for themselves for sure. Yet,
Yeah.
in good conscience, I cannot give this a very high mark. So I'm going to give it a 2.5 out of 5.
Okay. I mean, that's not terrible.
No. I mean, there's like some good stuff in it. The actors are good. It's shot well. It's got the great Badalamenti score, which I like all of his work for the most. Well, not all of it. Unequivocally, I like all of his work. And
it's something different for him too. It's not what he's known for.
Yeah, but it adds like that. Like I said, that this brooding ominousness to it, like in the beginning scenes. I love that. That's a late '90s, early 2000s thing, which I
sure
get nostalgic about that period too. I guess in some ways.
Sure.
I got to say at the end, if I saw Lily Sobieski, I would avoid her. Honestly. She's a very attractive lady, very beautiful woman, but there's this aura of chaos about her, which would scare me off, I think.
Yeah, so good casting there.
Yeah, great cast,
Yeah.
James Franco, blast from the past.
Avoid. Yeah, avoid at all costs, apparently.
It's funny, like, there, when he lived in Brooklyn for a while. Like,
well, of course he did.
And I remember, like, when I was out certain places, I saw, like, in a bathroom at this bar, there was, like, for a great blowjob, called James Franco, and there was, like, a cell phone number underneath it, right? And then, like, underneath that, he was like, "Oh, yeah, man, that's my old number." And I was like,
wow.
Yeah. And,
oh, wow.
But the thing is, it's like, and guys like this, what I mean? Like, maybe like when there was before social media and before like everyone having a phone with a camera on them. They're just dudes that I knew that if you were going to go out with them that night, you were going to see their dick eventually. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, of course.
You would go from this place and you go to that place and you're in a car and then it's like 2:00 in the morning and then this guy pulls his dick out,
Yeah, and that's James Franco is what you're saying?
And that's kind of the guy I imagine James Franco is, Not a bad guy, but a little wild.
Do you think this movie works any better if you replace James Franco with Nicolas Cage? Like they switch roles. Like Nicolas Cage shows up at the end of this, and James Franco is Edward Malis. Is the movie any better?
No. No, I don't think that the reversal of those roles would have really helped this film. Really.
See, we've talked about this before. Nicolas Cage can make or break a movie, and like I said, he is out of control on this movie. And in Bad Lieutenant, it works because I can just see Werner Herzog like sitting back, smiling, like this is perfect.
Just like, yeah,
this man is crazy. Yeah,
yeah,
and
this is perfect.
Yeah, very silly. Go ahead, switch your accents mid-movie. No one will care. But like, yeah, here he's just running around acting insane, and I have to imagine those are Nicolas Cage choices that another actor wouldn't make. Like, maybe James Franco would. Maybe, like, I think it would still be misguided, but I think it would be inherently less silly with a different actor.
Maybe. Franco is a great actor too, man. Like, that's the thing. That's the sad part about all this is like, dude, I think that guy is like an incredible actor, and it just sucks that no one's like brave enough to put him in a movie these days.
He's popped up in a few things in smaller roles. He did this movie, I forget the name of it. Mogwai did the music for it. It's the only reason I watched some of it. Not good. He pops up here and there, but yeah, he had just come off of a Golden Globe win for The Disaster Artist, or best comedy film, something, I don't know.
But that was right before his Me Too moment, though, right?
It was literally right before. It was the day before.
Yeah.
And I just remember going, they got Franco. All right.
You knew that was.
But yeah. I mean, I don't know the guy. I don't know anyone who knows the guy.
Yeah.
But he's had that kind of vibe.
Well, how the fuck does Mel Gibson still have a career? Like, and James Franco has to like hide from everyone.
Yeah, I mean, Mel Gibson has to be one of the bigger assholes in Hollywood. I mean, he has to be.
Yeah.
Well, he's gone that whole like Christian or religious route. He made Passion of the Christ and
yeah. Well, no, I Passion of the Christ was a torture porn film, so that was awesome. Yeah, dude, I saw that in Germany actually, with like in the dead language with German subtitles. I saw it in a movie theater. It was like
that must have been an interesting experience.
it was very interesting, man. You know what I mean? And yeah, but
Yeah.
how does he have a career? James Franco has to hide, and how the fuck hasn't someone called out like Tommy Lee or any of these like Motley Crue guys for all the dark shit they've done with women in the 80s? You know,
That's an interesting point, which begs the maybe someone will remake the remake of the Wicker Man and put Tommy Lee in it.
that'd be sick, man. Tommy Lee
Yeah.
as they have a different name, yet another name for him. You know?
Yeah, I can see it. Well, that pretty much sums up our thoughts on the Wicker Man remake in 2006. I would say, see for yourself, and decide whether you like it or not. Don't let dumb memes make up your mind for you.
Yeah, this one should get some pretty interesting comments, I think. this entry, so
Yeah, of course. Well, you're supposed to hate this movie with every ounce of your being, but I just don't, and I'm not sorry for it.
yeah. Thanks for listening, everyone, and we'll catch you guys next week. Take care.
Take care.
Stinking breath, smelling of death.